Hey guys, it is Tommy here from Saleslucky.com, and today I'm looking forward to share with you an interesting topic and how it relates to sales. Uh, in 2014, I went to a 3-day intensive by a man named David Deida. Now, you might have heard his name. He's written several books, but he's not necessarily in the sales space. He's more of a spiritual teacher, and perhaps his best known book is called Way of the Superior Man. I mean, he writes books for men, women. His topics are really about, intimacy, love, masculine and feminine polarities. So not your traditional business type of stuff, right? But his books are very popular. Lots of business people, lots of entrepreneurs, read his material because they are related in a lot of senses, in a lot of ways. And obviously at the time in 2014, being a young man, I was really trying to understand aspects of this for my own life. And I'll share with you what I learned and how it applies to sales. So in our 3-day intensive, again, this is more of a spiritual, like intimacy kind of workshop, right? And you have to be open-minded. If this sounds like woo-woo or airy fairy, it's probably not the right content for you. But if you're open-minded, I'll share with you what I learned and how it applies to sales. Now, one of the things that we practice during this 3-day workshop, as simple as it sounds, and you'll know that I've shared within my blog, the simple things are the most important things. Sometimes the most fundamental truths of our world, in our society, of success, they're simple. It's simple is important because if it's simple, you can execute on it. People who like to make things really complicated, difficult to understand, when I hear stuff like people like that, I question it, because I question if they really understand, and two, what my mentor Andy Frisella said is, if you want to impress me, don't make it complicated. If you want to impress me, take something that's complicated and make it simple. That's how people know what they're talking about, right? Anyways, kind of going on a tangent, but one of the things that we practice in this 3-day intensive is deep breathing, because as people, most of us have forgotten how to breathe properly. If you look at babies, when they breathe lying down, their bellies come up and their bellies come down. But as adults, most people, they've forgotten how to breathe properly. So when they breathe, their shoulders lift up, right? They kind of breathe and fill up their upper chest. But the proper way to breathe is actually to fill your belly with air, and then fill your chest with air. And the reason is because to do so, you're actually using all of your lungs as opposed to just the top half or third of your lungs. And if you ask singers or musicians, they will understand this. So we did some breathing practices, and one easy practice that you can actually do is, and I do this every morning when I wake up, is when I'm lying down, I'll breathe by first filling up my lower belly, and then filling up my mid belly, and then filling up the top of my chest. And when I exhale, I first press out the air from the top of my chest, and then let out the air from my lower belly last. So what this does is it trains you. And what David Deida says is that if you just learn how to breathe correctly throughout your day, this will transform your entire life. And while something so simple might sound so simple, it actually has an incredible impact, especially in sales and business. And I'll explain why. It's no secret that sales, it can be high pressure. It can be high pressure, a lot of stress. And we've all heard, when someone's stressed out, what do you tell them to do? Take deep breaths. And there's a reason why we say that, and there's a reason why in yoga you do deep breathing. Because deep breathing, you calm your mind. And in Eastern philosophy, it's well known that the breath is linked to the mind. So if you can control your breath, you can control your mind. And while that might sound deep, it's actually very, very practical. So in sales situations, I've used deep breathing, and it's more habitual now for me, that I use it as a way to control my state, manage my state, remain calm, And when you're calm, you can think clearly, as opposed to react. You can respond to the situation, as opposed to react. Okay, huge difference there. Makes a huge difference in results. So deep breathing, number one. Number two is sensory acuity. Now, another thing that we did in this workshop with David Deida was we practiced not only emoting energy, which is the next point, number three, but also receiving energy. And while that, again, that might sound woo-woo, if you stay with me here with an open mind, it's been proven through science that everything is energy. Everything in our world is energy and matter. And so in this workshop, we practice emoting energy. We practice, emoting different emotions. While, that was in that context of, intimacy and relationships and whatnot, in business and sales, it's the same thing. And the reason is because it's well known that sales is nothing more than a transference of emotion. So, the greatest salespeople are the most, not just the most enthused and passionate about the product and their wares and their services, but it's the ones who can control that enthusiasm. So it's controlled enthusiasm as opposed to just uncontrolled enthusiasm that they don't have under control, right? So, and you'll notice this with top salespeople is that they are passionate, they are enthused. Enthusiasm actually comes from the word entheos, meaning in God, filled with God. And, so that's something that we practice in the workshop that applies directly to sales, being able to control your enthusiasm almost like a tap, right? You can turn it up, you can turn it down, and it's important to do that because that's really the transference of emotion is really what influences people. And as Tony Robbins says, you can only influence someone if you've already been influenced yourself. In other words, you cannot give somebody that which you do not have, which is key. So along with emoting, which is point number three, and I'll kind of jump to point number two now, which is receiving energy, what we did in the workshop as well, giving and receiving, emoting, practice emoting energy and receiving energy, and being sensitive to that energy. And this is a key thing, is that sensitivity is actually a superpower in sales and in business, because another word for this is just sensory acuity. Are you able to sense what's going on in your environment, not only in your environment, but with your prospect, their body language, their facial features, the vibes that they're giving off? Again, energy is a real thing. The vibes that they're giving off, regardless of what people are saying. I mean, that's obviously one data point, but what is their body language saying? What is their tonality saying? And those are all things that, as top salespeople, we need to take into context. And, I want to share with you one lesson that I've really learned over these past 18 months. Again, I learned this from Andy Frisella. He says, learn to listen to others only through their actions and learn to speak only through yours. And this idea had changed everything for me in terms of how I perceive things, how I understand people and what they're doing. And whether what they're saying lines up with their actions, whether what they're saying lines up in congruence with their actions, okay? Something very key to watch for. So in addition to deep breathing, sensory acuity, learning to control your enthusiasm, emoting, the last thing is presence. One of the things that we practice in this workshop is being present. In other words, and active listening is another term for this, used in the business world. It's being in front of your prospect or in front of your friend or partner or whatever, and giving 100% of your intention on them. We live in a distracted world today where large organizations like Facebook and all these other companies are fighting for your attention. And it's important to give our undivided attention when we're in a sales call or when we're talking with a friend or whatever may have you, because one thing it does is it really allows you to stand out from the rest of the world. I think we've all seen the setting where a family's sitting down for dinner and every single one of them is looking at their phone, even though they're out for dinner to enjoy each other's company, right? So that's very much kind of the norm of our world and society these days. And paying attention is incredibly powerful. One of the things I tell people who are learning sales, want to improve in sales, is that sales is really a listening game. Sales is more about asking asking good questions and listening than actually talking, especially in B2B sales, where you're really seeking to understand your prospects' pain points, their challenges, in order to provide them a solution. And I actually want to share with you a quote. I'm reading a book called What It Takes by Stephen Schwarzman. This is the guy that founded and built, one of the founders of Blackstone, multi-billion-dollar company, okay? And this is what he says on listening. Pay attention here. Listening to people seemed obvious, but it evidently marked me out on Wall Street. I didn't just try selling whatever it is what I had to sell. I listened. I waited to hear what people wanted, what was on their mind, and then set about to make it happen. I rarely take notes in meetings. I just pay very close attention to what the other person is saying and the way that he or she is saying it. If I can, I try to find some point of connection, an area of common ground, a shared interest or experience that turns a professional encounter into a more personal one, aka rapport building. It sounds like common sense, but apparently in practice, it is relatively rare. And this is coming from a guy that's worth $16 billion at the time of this video. So maybe something to pay attention to, right? So I've underlined, I'm underlining so much in this book, and taking a lot of notes, and I hope this video was helpful for you. I would also recommend checking out any of David Deida's books. I've read several of them, and they're all great books. Very, very insightful teacher in the realm of relationships, masculine energy, feminine energy, understanding the differences, as well as intimacy. I know that's not specifically sales related, but I thought I would start sharing with you guys things from my personal life that I've learned and how it's applied to sales. And what Tony Robbins calls this is cross-pollinating. It's learning about one field and gaining distinctions in one field and allowing those distinctions to transfer into other fields like business or sales and make connections there. And it's one key way that he does to gain distinctions, new distinctions in whatever it is that he's working on, okay? Or improve on. Anyways, hope you guys got value out of this video. I will see you guys soon. Let me know what you guys thought. If you guys got value out of this, what was your biggest takeaway? And what would you like to see more of? I'll chat with you guys soon.